in the oldest halls of Norse myth, where fire meets frost and the world was shaped by chaos. There is one name whispered with equal fear and fascination: Loki, a god of cunning, a weaver of disorder, a father to beings who would one day reshape the fate of gods and mortals alike. This is the tale of Loki's 3 children, creatures born from mischief, molded by prophecy, and destined to stand at the edge of the world's final dusk. Part 1. The Shadow of Loki. Before the world knew thunder, before the first blade was forged, before gods and giants carved their names into the fabric of eternity, there was a silence so vast, so ancient, that even time itself seemed hesitant to breathe. From this silence, the 9 realms emerged. Mountains rose from mist, seas churned with newborn storms. Creatures of fire, frost, and shadow claimed their dominions. And in the heart of this mythic tapestry, one figure stood apart, neither hero nor villain, neither ally nor enemy. Loki, a being whose presence defied boundaries. A flame shaped like a man, a mind sharpened by wit, mischief, and restless curiosity. He walked among the Aesir, the golden gods of Asgard, as both companion and contradiction. He shared their halls, their feasts, their triumphs, yet carried within him the ancient blood of Jotunheim, the land of giants, where frost and wildness ruled. To some, Loki was a friend, a clever voice in difficult times, a hand that solved the problems no other dared approach. To others, he was a warning, a reminder that the line between order and chaos was thin as a strand of spun gold. But it was not Loki's laughter, nor his controversies, nor his shifting loyalties that shaped the greatest legends of the Norse world. It was his children, 3 beings born not in Asgard's halls, but in a shadowed corner of the 9 realms, the iron forest of Jotunheim, where ancient trees clawed at the sky, and the wind whispered prophecies into the ears of those who dared listen. Their mother was Angrboda, the bringer of grief, a giantess with eyes deep as storm clouds, and a history entangled with the wild, untamed forces of the cosmos. From their union, 3 children emerged, each unlike anything the realms had ever seen. Children who did not simply enter the world, but shifted its destiny the moment they drew breath. The first, a wolf with ember-glowing eyes, whose strength grew beyond the limits of nature itself. The second, a serpent whose body knew no boundary, whose length would one day measure the world. The third, a daughter who bore life and death upon her face, and whose realm would one day gather the quiet souls forgotten by glory. Fenrir, Jörmungandr, Hail. Their names ripple through time, not as mere monsters of legend, but as symbols of forces older than the gods themselves. Inevitability, cycles, endings, and rebirth. But when the Aesir first heard whispers of these children, they did not think of symbolism, philosophy, or cosmic balance. They thought only of prophecy. A prophecy that spoke of shadows rising, of bonds breaking, of a twilight that would challenge the very foundations of their golden realm. In their fear, the gods made a choice that would shape the fate of the 9 realms. As surely as the roots of Yggdrasil shaped the sky, they decided the children must be found, separated, sent away, controlled. They believed they were preventing catastrophe, but in truth, they were stepping directly into the path laid out by destiny itself. For in Norse myth, it is rarely the monster who begins the tragedy, but those who fear it. And so, as the golden halls of Asgard cast their gaze across the realms, as riders moved between worlds seeking the offspring of Loki, a storm began to form on the horizon, not of lightning or fire, but of fate. A storm carried in the footsteps of 3 children, whose lives would one day unravel the threads the gods had woven. Their story begins here, in the Shadow of Loki, in the moment the gods first learned that the future itself had taken shape, in the forests of Jotunheim. Part 2. The origins of the 3 children of Loki. When people speak of Loki, they often imagine a trickster, a shapeshifter, a being who dances on the edge of order and chaos. But the older stories whisper something deeper. They speak of the 3 beings born not from mischief, but from destiny itself, entities who would leave an imprint on the cosmos so profound, even the gods could not escape it. To understand them, we must return to a time long before the final storms of fate, to the era when the 9 realms were young, and the threads of prophecy had only begun to tighten. Loki in these ancient stories is not simply a figure of chaos. He is complex, brilliant, unpredictable, a being who could shift shapes as easily as shifting thoughts. His partner in this mythic moment is Angrboda, a giantess of the ironwood, a realm where shadows cling to the trees like memories, and where ancient magic moves unseen. Their meeting is described less like a love story, and more like a collision of forces, two powerful beings whose union would ripple through time. From this union came three children, each one unlike anything the cosmos had seen before. The first was Fenrir, a wolf whose birth shook the forests of the Ironwood. The myths describe him not as a monster, but as a creature whose strength was simply too vast for the world to contain. His eyes were said to reflect not hunger, but understanding, an awareness that unsettled even the gods. Fenrir was a being shaped by the weight of destiny, long before he ever touched it. The second, Jörmungandr, emerged into existence already too large for the mortal world. The stories say he grew so quickly, the land itself could not hold him. And so he was cast into the great ocean that surrounds Midgard. There, he expanded and expanded until his body formed a circle around the world. He was not born to crawl, but to encompass. And then came the third, Hel, not a beast, not a serpent, but a being with a quiet and solemn power. She was said to look upon both the living and the dead without fear. Her presence was not one of malice, but of inevitability. She would be given dominion over a realm that bore her name, a place not of punishment, but of rest, reflection, and the lingering echoes of life. 3 children, each touching a different domain, the wild, the ocean, the underworld. It is almost as if the fabric of reality itself divided their paths, but the gods feared what they might become. The prophecies at the time spoke of a future shaped by these children, a future where balance and destiny would collide. And so Odin and the Aesir, wary of the unknown, made choices that would echo through myth forever. Choices rooted not in cruelty, but in fear of what the future might hold. Fenrir would be raised in Asgard, under watchful eyes. Jörmungandr would be sent into the deep, where no land-bound creature could reach him. Hel would be given a realm to rule, far from the world of the living. Each of the 3 children of Loki was marked by destiny, from the moment they opened their eyes. They were not symbols of destruction, but symbols of inevitability, natural forces given form, cycles made flesh. And though the gods tried to alter what had been foretold, the stories remind us of a truth older than any myth. What is born from destiny cannot be unmade by fear. Part 3. Fenrir, the unbound fate. Among the children of Loki, Fenrir stands as the most feared, and yet perhaps the most tragic. Not born of cruelty, nor shaped by malice, he is a force of nature, a living embodiment of what cannot be restrained, no matter how tightly the world tries. Even as a pup, Fenrir carried an aura that unsettled the gods. His eyes were said to burn with intelligence, awareness, and a quiet power that no chain could hold. The myths tell of his early days in Asgard, brought by Loki not out of affection, but out of inevitability. The gods watched with growing unease, aware that prophecy had already spoken of the wolf's role in the coming twilight of the gods. Fenrir grew faster than any mortal or divine creature. His paws became claws that could tear through stone. His teeth, like sharpened moonlight, could rend metal. Yet despite his immense strength, there was something remarkable in his demeanor, a calm, almost knowing presence, as if he understood the world's designs better than those who sought to control him. The Aesir feared him. Fear, after all, is a powerful motivator. It was this fear that led them to attempt what all knew would be a dangerous act, to bind Fenrir. The first chains were crude yet strong. Iron forged in the sacred halls of Asgard was placed upon him. Fenrir, however, broke them with ease, as if they were no more substantial than spider silk. A second attempt fared no better, and a third chain, heavier and more complex, still could not hold the wolf's strength. At last the gods sought the help of the dwarves, the master smiths whose hands could forge the impossible. From them came Gleipnir, a ribbon of silken strength, woven from impossible things, the sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the breath of a fish, and the spittle of a bird. It was a chain invisible in its delicacy, yet unbreakable in its strength. But Fenrir was no fool. He sensed the trap. He knew the gods' intent and demanded a price before allowing himself to be bound. One of the gods must place their hand in his mouth as a gesture of trust. Only Tyr, the god of courage and law, stepped forward. His hand was lost as Gleipnir tightened around the wolf, binding him against his will. Fenrir's roar shook the heavens, a sound that echoed through the realms, foretelling the day when he would break free. And yet even in captivity, Fenrir was more than a monster. He was a symbol, the unstoppable force of destiny, the the truth that some things, no matter how carefully restrained, are meant to break free. He embodies the tension between control and inevitability, between fear and fate. The prophecies whispered of the day when Gleipnir would fail, when Fenrir's jaws, long held in submission, would rise again in vengeance. That day the wolf would leap forth to meet the gods in the final twilight, a harbinger of change and destruction alike. But beyond the fear, beyond the chains, lies a deeper truth. Fenrir was never evil. He is nature made flesh, a reminder that strength and power cannot be judged by appearances alone, nor by the intentions of those who fear them. And so, bound yet alive, imprisoned yet patient, Fenrir waits, a silent testament to the limits of control, and a living promise that prophecy is never denied. In the story of Fenrir, we see the wolf as he truly is, a creature of destiny, an unstoppable force, and the shadow of what the world must one day confront. Part 1. Jörmungandr, the serpent of the world's edge. While Fenrir roamed the lands of gods and mortals alike, Jörmungandr, Loki's second child, was cast into a realm of water and silence. The Aesir believed the oceans would contain him, that the tides and depths of Midgard would swallow the serpent whole, and that the prophecy surrounding him would fade beneath the waves. But the myths tell a different story. Jörmungandr grew, and grew, and grew, not slowly, not hesitantly, but with a quiet inevitability, as if the world itself had been designed to give him space. His body stretched beyond the horizon, coils long enough to encircle Midgard, the realm of men, in a continuous ring. When he grasped his own tail, the serpent became a living Ouroboros, a symbol of eternity, cycles, and the unbreakable link between beginnings and endings. The serpent of the world's edge was not merely a beast, he was a force of balance. The oceans themselves moved according to his will. When Jormungandr stirred, storms churned, tides rose, and waves battered the coasts with the precision of destiny itself. Even gods approached him with caution, knowing that one misstep could bring calamity to Midgard. The stories tell of Thor, the Thunderer, whose destiny would become forever entwined with the serpent. On more than one occasion, the god of storms crossed paths with the colossal creature. One legendary tale describes a fishing trip, where Thor, unaware of the serpent's size, nearly caught Jörmungandr on a line. The tension between them caused the seas to quake, and the world trembled beneath the weight of prophecy. In these encounters, the myths reveal a truth about Jörmungandr. He is not born of malice, nor does he seek destruction. He is order in cycles, the force that marks the boundaries of the world, reminding gods and men alike of limits and thresholds. His presence encircles the known world, both protective and perilous. He is the measure of what lies beyond, the edge that must not be crossed until fate demands it. Yet prophecy has not ignored him. The seers whisper of a time when the serpent will release his tail, breaking the circle he formed. When that day comes, Thor and Jörmungandr will meet in a final confrontation, a cosmic clash that will shake the foundations of the 9 realms. The serpent will rise from the depths, waves towering like mountains, the oceans trembling with his movement. Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, will strike, thunder clashing with the roar of the abyss. Until that moment, Jörmungandr waits in silence. Beneath the waves, his coils drift through the depths, a reminder of the cycles that govern existence, the borders that define life, and the inevitability of change. He embodies the truth that some forces cannot be fought, only understood, and that the world itself has edges we cannot escape. Jörmungandr's story is one of patience and inevitability, a serpent whose quiet presence shapes history as much as Fenrir's fury. He is not a monster to be slain, nor a creature to be tamed, but a living testament to the boundaries of the cosmos, the delicate balance between worlds, and the cycles of time that even gods cannot alter. In the tale of Jörmungandr, we see a force both terrifying and magnificent, the ultimate reminder that in Norse mythology, destiny is as vast and unyielding as the oceans themselves. Part 5. Hel, Monarch of the Silent Realm. Among Loki's children, Hel is perhaps the most misunderstood. Unlike Fenrir, who strikes fear with sheer strength, or Jörmungandr, whose vastness commands awe, Hel's power is subtle, quiet, and absolute. She is neither beast nor brute, neither predator nor conqueror. She is the ruler of the inevitable, death, stillness, and the quiet that follows life. From the moment of her birth, the gods sensed her difference. Her form reflected duality itself, one half of her face warm and human, alive with the pulse of life, the other pale, cold, and still, a visage of death itself. This dual nature made the gods uneasy, not because she was evil, but because she embodied what none wished to face, the inevitability of mortality, the unyielding certainty that all things must end. Odin, in his wisdom and caution, cast Hel into Helheim, a realm deep beneath the roots of Yggdrasil. It was a land of shadowed halls, rivers that flowed like cold silver, and mountains of silence that seemed to stretch beyond memory. Here Hel would rule, not as a tyrant, but as a custodian of the balance between life and death. Her kingdom, Eljudnir, is described as immense and solemn. It is not a place of torment for heroes or villains, but a realm where the souls of those who die unremarkable, deaths, those who neither fall in battle nor earn song, find their place. Here, the ordinary and forgotten find the stillness that life denies them. Yet Hel herself is not cruel. She is calm, measured, patient. In her presence, the living feel the weight of inevitability, the quiet lesson that life and death are two halves of the same whole. She does not hurry, does not rage, does not seek vengeance. She waits as the worlds turn and time marches forward, knowing that her role is both sacred and eternal. Legends speak of her gatherings, where the dead silently come to her halls. There is no fear here, only order. Every soul has its place, every life, no matter how brief or insignificant, contributes to the eternal tapestry. In this, Hel embodies one of the most profound truths of Norse cosmology. Death is not the end, but part of the cycle that shapes the world. The myths also whisper that during Ragnarok, Hel's role will grow even more significant. The dead of Midgard will march at her command, their footsteps shaking the earth, bridging the realms of life and death. Yet even then she acts not from malice but from destiny. She is the queen of inevitability, the guardian of thresholds, the silent force that reminds gods and mortals alike that the passage from life to death is natural, necessary, and unending. Hel's legacy is one of reflection and balance, while Fenrir represents power that cannot be restrained, and Jörmungandr embodies cycles and boundaries. Hel is the stillness at the heart of existence, the quiet truth that life, no matter how vivid, is always temporary. She teaches acceptance, patience, and understanding, offering a perspective the living often fear, that the end is as important as the beginning. And so Hel reigns eternal and dignified, a figure of quiet power whose shadow stretches far beyond the borders of Helheim. In the stories of Loki's children, she is the embodiment of mortality itself, the silent reminder that all things, whether gods, men, or monsters, must one day return to the balance of the cosmos. Part 6. Their role in Norse cosmology. The children of Loki, Fenrir, Jörmungandr, and Hel were not merely figures of myth. They were forces woven into the very fabric of the cosmos, reflections of the balance between creation and destruction, life and death, order and chaos. Fenrir embodies the power that cannot be contained. His rage and strength represent the inevitable force that defies control, reminding the gods and mortals alike that some things cannot be restrained, no matter the effort. Jormungandr encircles the world as a living boundary, the serpent of cycles and limits. He is the edge of the known realms, the force that defines beginnings and endings, the eternal reminder that life moves in unending circles. Hel, ruler of the underworld, represents the inevitability of death and the quiet order of the afterlife. She governs the fate of those who have passed, ensuring that life and death remain intertwined, and that nothing escapes the cycle. Together, these three children form a triad of cosmic balance. They are not evil, nor merely destructive. They are essential, guiding the natural order and ensuring the rhythms of the nine realms continue, even in the shadow of prophecy. In the tapestry of Norse cosmology, the children of Loki are threads of inevitability, binding the mortal, divine, and eternal into a story that is both terrifying and profound. Part 7. Symbolism and Psychological Meaning. The children of Loki are more than figures of myth. They are symbols that mirror the human experience, reflections of forces both external and internal. Fenrir is the embodiment of unchecked power and suppressed potential. His story warns of the consequences when strength is restrained by fear. He is the wild force within us all, waiting for the moment it must break free, a reminder that control has limits. Jormungandr, the world-encircling serpent, represents cycles, boundaries, and the unknown. He teaches that life is shaped by the forces beyond our perception, an eternal dance of beginnings and endings. His coil is a symbol of the world's hidden edges, the mysteries that define existence, and the inevitability of change. Hel, queen of the silent realm, embodies acceptance and the inevitability of death. She reminds mortals and gods alike that endings are as natural as beginnings, that life flows into stillness, and that reflection and understanding are as vital as action. Together, these three figures reveal the psychology of inevitability, the forces that shape our world, the limits we cannot escape, and the truths we must confront. They are lessons cloaked in myth, stories that speak to the human mind and soul, as much as to the nine realms. Part 8. The Prophecies of the Final Dawn. Long before the final twilight of the gods, the seers of Asgard whispered of a coming day, the Ragnarok, the end and rebirth of all things. Central to these prophecies were Loki's children, whose fates were inextricably bound to the destiny of the nine realms. Fenrir, the bound wolf, would one day break free of Gleipnir, his roar shattering the heavens and heralding the unraveling of divine order. Jörmungandr, the serpent encircling the world, would rise from the depths, releasing the waters of Midgard and shaking the earth itself. Hel, queen of the underworld, would command the dead to march, bridging the worlds of life and death in a tide of inevitability. These prophecies do not depict chaos without purpose. They speak of cycles, destruction that clears the way for renewal, endings that allow beginnings. In Norse cosmology, the final dawn is not merely an apocalypse, but a turning of the world, orchestrated by forces both feared and revered. The children of Loki are the fulcrum of this turning, the living embodiment of prophecy, a reminder that destiny, once set, cannot be undone, and that the threads of fate, however tangled, are always moving toward their inevitable conclusion. Part 9. The Legacy of Loki's Children. Across centuries, the tales of Fenrir, Jörmungandr, and Hel have endured not merely as stories of monsters, but as living symbols of forces greater than themselves. Their legacy stretches beyond prophecy or fear. It is a mirror of the eternal truths that shape existence. Fenrir teaches that strength cannot always be controlled, that the power within, though feared, has its own purpose. Jörmungandr reminds us of boundaries and cycles, the limits that define life and the eternal rhythm that connects beginnings to endings. Hel, silent and patient, embodies the inevitability of death and the necessity of acceptance. In the myths, the gods may have sought to contain them, to deny their influence. Yet in doing so, they wove the very threads that brought the prophecy to life. The children of Loki are reminders that destiny cannot be escaped, and that attempts to defy fate often carry the seeds of its fulfillment. Even today, these stories continue to resonate. They appear in the minds of those who reflect on the nature of power, mortality, and cycles of life. They endure not as cautionary tales of evil, but as teachings of balance, of inevitability, and of the forces that govern both gods and mortals alike. Fenrir, Jörmungandr, and Hel are not just children of a trickster. They are eternal echoes of destiny, shaping the story of the nine realms and reminding all who hear their tale that every beginning carries within it the shadow of an ending, and every ending holds the promise of a new dawn. In the shadowed corners of ancient myth, their names still echo. Fenrir, Jörmungandr, Hel, born from secrecy, shaped by prophecy, destined to stand at the edge of worlds. They are reminders that some forces cannot be controlled, only understood, that endings are as natural as beginnings, and that destiny, once set, flows like a river beyond the reach of even gods. Through their stories, we glimpse the eternal rhythm of the cosmos, the balance of chaos and order, life and death, creation and destruction. The children of Loki are not merely myths. They are reflections of the forces that shape all existence. And so their tale continues, in whispers across time, in the beating heart of legend, in the darkness between stars. This is Myth Abyss, where the old world speaks and the echoes never fade.